Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Warcraft 2016, or Warcraft The Beginning as an alternative title. So, honestly, I feel World of Warcraft or WoW could be used really better as a series. I feel like there's a lot of cramming and there's a lot of just like, we need to showcase everything in 2 hours. And I'm like, no. You can't, you shouldn't, and why would you? And like we kind of have like two stories going on. We have like the orc story and we also have the human story. And so like they're trying to tell two stories in one film, and like it's just getting very sloppy. So I just kind of would love a series to kind of just slow this down a bit, and sadly enough, we never got that. But so going into this film, I liked certain characters, but I think I liked more on like the orc side than I did the human side. Just because we had some interesting characters, and I might trip over the names of pronouncing this because yeah, within a 2 hour movie, there were some names where I'm like, Garona, the half breed, or Garona. I liked her the most, like just visually just interesting, and like a character that just had a really interesting like backstories and little information that it seems that she was at some point going to get with Lothar or Lothar. I'm gonna go with Lothar. That sounds better. Uh, Andean, sure. These names. So we go into this story, and so it seems that the orcs. I'm going to kind of tee it up here. The orcs are to have lost their homeworld, which of course is Daenor, and they are to decide to have Galden open up this portal to Azeroth, and so now we have it to where now the humans are realizing that these orcs are now here, and they like are fighting for real estate at this point, literally, because orcs are wanting to like be like the top of the food chain and kind of steal all these humans to have uh Galda or Golda or Golda take them to just suck the life out of all of them, because he of course is to use the power of the Fel. And so you're going to notice quite a bit of times where I'm just going to have to like look down at certain things because good god, names and all this kind of jazz, for all of like the details that have to go into this movie for 2 some odd hours. I'm just like, man, there was a lot just going on in here. And I saw this once before, and I think in like a theater or something. Like, I just wanted to see like what everybody was so interested in about WoW. And I was like, okay, like this world looks beautifully interesting, and I have seen WoW like played with like Markiplier and PewDiePie, and like I've seen series and stuff like that. And I think at some points I've seen people play like the World of Warcraft game, but I never really got fully like immersed into it and whichever. I think at some points I've kind of played around with it a little bit and stuff like that. But anyways, so with that said, let's go on and eventually mention where you can go out of your way to see this movie. What's my grading on this film? So if you go on and you Google search this, most of the time you would probably find a way to rent this movie, and at the very end there's this goofy weird app that I've never seen before called IQIYI or some goofy thing that I don't even know if it has like a free trial or some goofy crap. I don't know. So really, if you haven't already have a copy of this because you're a WoW fan regardless, and you want to just rewatch this movie to maybe just go on to like, this was like a attempt at Warcraft, like, go ahead and check it out. I can also mention some free options to hopefully have you be able to watch this for absolutely free, and I will list them off now. Besides the renting and Amazon renting and all that jazz. So, with that said, let's go on. First, you can go on to Google search a app called Letter C Movies app. Hopefully, you can be able to find this app through a Google search, download it, and be able to say that you can see whatever you like. You don't have to say the word letter, just put this thing, a C, and hopefully you can be able, again, to see whatever you want. Premium access stuff that is to be brand new released, exclusive items that are only to be seen on certain Netflixes or CW shows or whichever, it's like almost all access. Or you can go on to a app called Fox HD Movies. Regardless of what I say next, just hold on to those words because you're going to go on and find hopefully an app through a search that is to say Fox HD Movies through the logo, but the title is to say something different. It's to play 1080p HD movies. And so, yeah, hopefully you can be able to find any bootlegish app either by just going on and going through a phone store search and being able to just say the words movie app and just kind of see what bootlegish thing you eventually come up with. You can also go on to two words called TV Crush. So once you find TV Crush, you'll find a logo or once you search the word TV Crush, you'll find a logo that says HD Movies with a king crown off to the side. You can justify going into this app, downloading it, and being able to hopefully watch Warcraft for free, or honestly just finding a number of movies you wouldn't be able to see anywhere else for absolutely free. So, grading of this movie, like, I would have to say that this movie, is like okay. I have technically rewatched this movie now, so I can say like it has rewatched value. It might even be better, weirdly, more times into watching it because maybe you're going to forget a good chunk of this film because there's just a lot going on in a short amount of times. But, like, I'm sure for a lot of diehard WoW fans, they were probably heavily disappointed in this movie, or they would have their own opinion about this film because they would probably go on and probably say it was crap. Or maybe they actually really did like this film, which either way, that would be great. Because, like, I think people would have really liked a Warcraft franchise because people like want to not only be able to watch a movie as well as play a game that they're a fan of, and so I'm assuming at some point Fortnite is probably going to be a film, right? And then when it becomes a movie, I would be like, really? Like, I know, like, Fortnite, I think, probably has those, like, animated little skit diddly things, and I'm just like, whatever. Those little animated movies, I think they might have those, and I'm like, why? But it exists. So with that said, I'm going to double five this bad boy up. Hopefully I'm going to be able to say everything to get out of my way to go into talk about to detail with all of this. So let's go into it. Let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about that time we get to spoil this movie. So in the beginning of this film, we have Draenor. Draenor, who of course is have a number of orcs that are all to be going on and getting ready to go on and teleport from Draenor to Azeroth. And so we have both Durotan and Draka going and talking about her being pregnant, Draka being pregnant. And that they're like, well, hey, like, what name should we have for him or her? And Durotan is telling Draka, it's like, well, hey, whatever it is, like, you can keep the name to yourself because, like, I have my own name to give this child. So Durotan is to tell Draka to just kind of make sure, like, she protects like her pregnant womb for when they have to go through this portal, because anything can happen. So like they're having this nice, sweet, tender moment, really telling us that we should root for these orc characters because we honestly enjoy them in this movie. Like I do. Some people may feel differently. So we go on, and so Gul'dan or Gul'dan is to have the power of the Fel, and so he has the ability to put forth this portal to have all these orcs go to Azeroth. And come to find out, Gul'dan had also had the help of another character to help him get his orcs through the portal, which we'll hopefully talk about later. So the orcs are to start making it through this portal, and once Durotan is to go through first, and then Draka is to follow. Once Draka is to make it through the portal, all of a sudden she is forced into labor. Well, Gul'dan is to be telling Draka to push, is to push out this child. This child is to die. We have Gul'dan, who is to take the life from this deer and like resurrect this child, and so now the baby is born, and so it of course to be handed off, and like, here, Durotan, here's your child. So now that I've covered all of that, so we transition to the Iron Forge, where we have Lothar, who is speaking to Bronzebeard, Magni Bronzebeard, who will see him later when the king is doing this council with a number of different like elves and certain kind of distinguished guys who hopefully I'll say somewhere in part of this movie. So we have Lothar in the Iron Forge, and he is to be given this boomstick, which, if a lot of people were to go on and see, God, what was it? The Army of Darkness. Like when we had it where Ash was to go on and have this, like, this double barrel shotgun, he called it boomstick. And so I guess they kind of took that name as a weapon in this movie. But I thought that was cool anyways. So we transition Lothar to now having to make his way to Stormwind, where he's to have to go on and talk to some guys about a mage who had gone into their barracks and was starting to pick over the dead. And of course, that guy was Khadgar, who is to be possibly the next guardian. And so we have Lothar that is to meet with Khadgar, or Khadgar, and so immediately, like, Lothar is to take this guy, take his arm, and to kind of have a piece to kind of hold it in place, and is to see the symbol of the Kirin Tor, which we'll have Khadgar talk about them a lot later when he is actually with Lothar and Garana, and he ends up saying that when he was a young guy, was to run away to the mages, or was taken to the mages, and was to, like, of course, be taught by them. And Lothar is like, man, like, some great stories. Because Garana is also to talk about how a plethora of times she was to have her bones broken, and then every single time that she was to have her bones broken, her bones grow stronger, and that Garana had broken her bones several times. And so that's why Lothar is just like, man, like, the stories that we have going on here, like, it's great. So we have Khadgar, who is to speak with Lothar and to tell him that he needs to inspect these dead bodies because there's something about them. And so Lothar is to let this kid go on and do this. And so the kid goes and sticks his fingers into this dead corpse and is to open, or is to have this fel that is to come out of them, like, making us realize that there is like some fel coming out of this guy, out of this character here. So we have Khadgar, who's telling Lothar that he desperately needs to speak to the king to get the Guardian to help them with this new threat of Fel being here. So we go on, and we of course have Lothar, who is to go to the Golden Shire Inn to talk to the king, and the king, of course, is to hear what Lothar and Khadgar are to mention. And we have Lady Tara, who is talking to Lothar and talking about that they're both brother and sister, and that they're just kind of reminiscing on old times. And so the king, Lane, is to come in and ask Lothar, has he been to Khorasan in a while? And we of course have Lothar is like, well, yeah, I can go on to, and he's like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna give you, like, this ring to have the Guardian be sent here. Medivh. Sure. Man, what names. So we of course have it where Lothar is to take this griffin, or griffon, to go with Khadgar to Khorasan and speak with the Guardian, or Khorasan, and speak with the Guardian. So immediately once they drop, we of course have it where they are met by Moros, who is to be the Guardian's kind of assistant of sorts. So we have Lothar, who ends up going on and talking to the Guardian, who I guess is building this massive golem out of years of magic. And so Lothar is telling the Guardian what's going on. And so after, like, he is to get this information, we have the Guardian, who is now asking about Khadgar, who is going on and, like, just thumbing through the Guardian's library and finding a specific book when his kind of tattoo or his scar is to go on and glow. He's like, oh, okay, I need to get this book and I need to read it somehow. And so this book leads him to find out about this gate. And when he is to find out about this gate, we have at one point where the Guardian is to burn every single one of these pages that Gadgar is drawing, because we had of course the Guardian that's like, well, hey, I'm still the Guardian, like, you do not do any of this research, because like, leave this to me. And every single time, like, we just have it to where like, the Guardian is just thinking that Godgar is consistently just overstepping his bounds, or there's a whole reason why the Guardian is hiding a bunch of this stuff from this guy, and he is slowly but surely figuring things out. So, so we go on, and the Guardian is to go with Lothar and Godgar back to meet up with the king, who is making all these plans of their next strategy, and come to find out that there seems to be eventually some dwindling down of certain ranks, because the orcs has gone on and killed a big chunk or taken a bunch of their people, and so they're just starting to run out of resources. So we also go on and we have Durant, who is with Orgrim, and it seems that we have the orcs who are ransacking a bunch of like people for this town for Gul'dan to just consume, and we have the Black Hand who is to ride his wolf to where these orcs are, both Duratan and Orgrim, and the Black Hand is like, well, hey, like, why aren't you guys going after these people and grabbing them up? And Duratan is mentioning, it's like, well, like, we go and attack people with weapons, not babies. Like, this isn't the right thing to do. And so, like, the Black Hand just kind of runs off, and so slowly but surely, like, right around this time, we just start having orcs who are just really just questioning their leader. They're questioning Gul'dan, and the more and more they're just realizing that Gul'dan is just going to consume whatever to keep himself powerful, and that might just lead to anybody just being consumed at some point. So, really what is to happen here is Lothar and a bunch of his men are to all go on and have them fight out in the Elwyn Forest. So, this, of course, is when they go on and we get to really have Garona be met with this group here. And she is to be in this kind of cage with this other orc who ends up just getting killed because this other orc is going to kill Garona because she is talking to these people. And so Garona, of course, is to be very chained because she's a half-breed, and the only time we see her before this is when she's with Gul'dan, and Gul'dan is just kind of making his way through the town, spotting that there's a number of certain like orc-like characters that are far too weak, that are just being caged up, that are desperately asking for their babies to be free, and Garona is looking at Gul'dan, and Gul'dan's like, well, no, like, I need every single human possible to do what I need to do, and Garona is like, well, I guess, like, there's nothing I can do about that. So, Lothar goes through and is starting to attack all of these orcs, and we have Callan, who is actually Lothar's son, and Callan is to consistently want to like get into battle, and Lothar is kind of pushing him aside because he worries and like that he's going to that his only son is going to die because his wife had died giving him childbirth, and so like that's the worry there. So, and that's what Lady Tara was talking to Lothar about when they were like meeting in the Goldshire Inn. So we have Lothar who's taking down a lot of these orcs here, and so the only orcs that are really left after this are, of course, be the two that I already mentioned who get imprisoned in this cage. And so when it seems that Lothar and Garana are like or talking to one another, we have the one orc that's like, "Hey, like don't tell him anything," and she ends up getting saved by Lothar because this orc is willing to chop out her tongue and kill her. So that starts to have Garana, who is to kind of want to be with Lothar and the king and help them. And when Durotan is with Orgrim, and he's starting to realize that a lot of the spots where Gul'dan was to be, like, it's starting to die off. Like, a part of the place where he's at, like, obviously, like, where they've kind of put camp, like, their whole field is starting to die. And Durotan is realizing that maybe the Fel is causing the main reason for, like, their world dying. And so Durotan is going to Orgrim and saying, like, hey, we need to get rid of Gul'dan, get rid of the Fel. So, like, we need to, like, just turn against him. And Orgrim is like, you know what, that sounds very reasonable. So, Durotan, when right around the time where they are at the Elwyn Forest, we of course have Durotan, who is to grab Kaldgar and is to talk to Garona and tell her, it's like, well, hey, like, I have a plan to want to team up with you, the human, and you and the humans, and I want us to overthrow Gul'dan because, like, he is, like, destroying the new planet that we're on. And so I want you to kind of, like, send that message to these people that I want to have a meeting with them to, like, call a truce so we can fight after the real enemy here. And so when Garona is to go on and be, like, very chained up, she is to go on and talk to the king and Lothar and tell them about the orcs, because these guys are not very familiar with them, and that the orcs will always tell the truth. And Garona is to mention how, like humans aren't really that strong, that orcs have, like, pets that are as strong as these humans are. And so Garona is to try and convince both the king and Lothar that, like, hey, they're going to want to go on and have this meeting. And the king is like, well, this might seem too good to be true. but like it seems also too enticing to not want to go on and just kind of hear them out. So Garana is, of course, to kind of get a exchange of clothes because we have Lady Tora, who is to give Garona like legit clothes, which she never really wears, and is to talk to her and kind of like, hey, I can get these chains off if you want, like I can help you. We have it where Garana is asking for a sword, and Lothar is like, well, I should be your only protection. And at some point, we have Lothar who does give Garana like a weapon, like this very small dagger, and then gives her a spear, and then because eventually, like they're going to need her. So we slowly but surely like start to find out that the Guardian is a very weakened character, that you can't really rely on this guy. He's very undependable. And for most of the time, that's when Lothar is very just upset with him. As kind of the Guardian is much more focused on building his golem out of clay that is to take years to do. And at some points is to need to be dipped into this bath because he is so weak. But really, like, the Guardian is getting so weak because he is getting infected with the Fel, and he thought that he can control it, but I guess no one could really control it. And so this is just kind of spilling out and eventually making the Guardian more evil. So the Guardian is to go on and have this little this little cliff where he is to kind of watch over this whole human slash orc kind of possibly peace treaty going on. And so Durana is to be the translator for the humans because the orcs can't speak their language. So I'm like, oh, okay. So, like, whenever we're with the orcs, like, we're seeing the English part of it because we don't want to have like subtitles the whole entire movie. But then, like, when we're like on the human side, we of course like have the humans not really understanding what any of these orcs are saying. So I'm like, oh, okay, so that's really interesting. And I'm like, thank God, because man, I don't want to read a whole entire movie of subtitles anyways. Because look at like Planet of the Apes movies where you have a whole movie done in like sign language, and I'm like, man, it would be great if these like monkeys or these chimpanzees or whichever could talk. Wouldn't that be great? Because I don't want to see like multiple hours of a subtitled film. I just don't, unless it's like unless it isn't like dubbed in English because I'm lazy. Just being honest. But anyways, so thank God for that. So the two groups are here, Dorotan and his clan, and so we go on, and both of them are to do this whole like dialogue between one another. And it seems that the king is wanting to go on and like, yeah, like I'm definitely gonna want to like side with you guys and help you guys out because I think it's just the lesser of two evils, and like it might just be like the enemy of the enemy is my friend. So why not? But then all of a sudden we have this orc ambush, and that's where things start to get a little murky or confusing. And so we have these orcs ambushing and coming out of nowhere. And so now we have Orc Colin is to start like battling on with all these orcs, and we have Lothar, who's chucking this spear to Goron or to Gorana, and but it still feels like Dortan and like the humans are just kind of like there for themselves, like they're not helping anybody out. It's just like, hey, like you fight those people, we'll fight these people. So since the king starts to become in jeopardy, they're shouting out to the guardian to put up like a shield, uh, because it seems that the orcs are starting to outnumber the humans. And so the guardian is to put up this shield, but sadly enough, there's certain humans that end up getting caught in the shield, and Colin seems to be one of those. As we also had a moment where Lothar before was to have Colin take out a number of troopers, and he was to come back injured. And Lothar is like, well, hey, are you okay? And he's like, yeah. But so we have Lothar that is desperately trying to get to his son. And Lothar is telling the Guardian, like, hey, like, put this shield down. And the Guardian isn't listening. Because, of course, the Guardian is to just, like, fall over at this point. And, like, he is, like, starting to become very weak, to where he then has to go back to Coruscant to, of course, have Morosis put him in this kind of magic bath. And we, of course, have Khadgar going on and like starting to figure out what's going on with the Guardian. We also had the moment where the king in this movie was talking to elf delegates and was talking to Bronzebeard and was talking to Lordarian delegates, Lodarian delegates, sure, or Cole Tyran delegates. A lot of delegates in this movie. Like all of this like round table where they're all like debating and talking, and so that just felt like, hey, like let's just show a bunch of number of different characters, which eventually we'll see towards the end of the movie when someone's going to die. So we have Colin, who is to sadly enough get killed by Blackhand, and Lothar is desperately trying to like touch his son and say like, hey, I'm here with you, like knowing you're gonna die. And Colin ends up getting killed, and Lothar is now just like, he is such in grief and he is so upset. And that is like a point where he's like, God, I just want to wipe out these guys. Like I'm sad, and I just want to wipe these guys out. So Lothar is to also hear from Khadgar that the Guardian is to be evil. That it seems that the Guardian was to be the one who was to open the portal for the orcs. And also, since the Guardian was to have this book, this magical book, to go on and figure all this out, that is to lead Khadgar to tell Lothar that's like, yeah, this guy is evil. Like there's something wrong with him. And that he's probably infected with the Fel, and like we need to go on and like take him down. Not only take him down, but then also take Gul'dan down, because they're kind of one and the same kind of threat. And so now we also have the aftermath of Durotan being a traitor for the orcs. And we also have at one point where Gul'dan is to be upset with Blackhand or Blackhand, and so he chops his hand off, or Durotan chops his hand off and is to want to save Blackhand, but like Gul'dan was just so easy to just kill off Blackhand, and Durotan just saved him because it's like, well, hey, we need all the numbers that we can get. And so Blackhand goes on and kills Colin. So now that Durotan is dealing with him possibly being a traitor, and so we have it where Durotan is finally naming his son Golan, or Goel, or Goel, something like that. And he is going off to eventually be called a traitor by a number of orcs, and at some point Durotan is to challenge Gul'dan to this fight because like they are to have this kind of fighting challenge where like you can't go on and use like magical abilities, which Gul'dan has. And so like we have this challenge going on of like trying to fight for being the king of the orcs, so to speak. So we have it where Durotan ends up getting like some pretty good looks in with Gul'dan, but Gul'dan cheats and is trying to use his magic and goes on to start like sucking the life out of Durotan. And so he does it so often that he just kills Durotan and drops him. And all the other orcs are like, well, hey, like, how could you go on and, like, you cheated? Like, does everybody seriously want this guy as your leader? And Gul'dan's like, dude, I am so freaking powerful. What are you guys gonna do? Like, if this is your strongest orc, like, what do you think you guys are gonna do? Really? So now that that's kind of out of the way, we have Orgrim, who is to talk to Draka and is telling her, like, hey, like, you need to get out of here. Because Orgrim is taking down some of the other orcs, and, like, Orgrim is being promised by Gul'dan that it's like, well, hey, like, I'm going to give you some power if you go on and just kind of do what I say. And as Gul'dan is just sucking the life out of some like rando guy that they found. So we have Gul'dan, who's decided at some point to also give Blackhand some fell power, so like he can be even stronger than what he would be normally. So Draka is to be in this tent, and Orgrim is telling her, hey, you need to get out of here. I'm going to buy you some time for your son. And so, like, because Orgrim was such, like, tight with Durotan that it's like, well, hey, I'm going to give you some time. Just get to running. As he rips open this tent, she runs out, and so Draka is to run off into the forest and like, come on, like, let this girl be saved. Wouldn't that be nice? And instead, Draka is to find that orcs are trying to find her, and so Draka is to have her baby in this little boat. And so she's like, well, like, remember, like, the family that you had. And Orgrim is to have, like, broken off Durotan's tooth and eventually to give to to Dorotan's child. So Draka, of course, is to fight off this orc and is to get killed with a knife in her gut. And she kills the orc, but the orc also kills her. So now we just have this orc who is this little baby orc who's floating around. And at the very tail end of this movie, I think it's like an end credit scene or something like that, like the very tail end of this movie, it seems that humans are to find this little baby orc, and they're like, oh, hey, like, look at this little baby. And the baby's like, ah! And, like, that's how the movie just weirdly ends for some bizarre reason. So, now that all that is covered, God, I feel like there's so much stuff that I also just skipped a roundabout, or I went back a roundabout, because there's so much to go into. Because there is. So, now we have to go on, and also, we have to have Khadgar that is to desperately need to be teleported to meet with the mages, with Corentor. And so he meets with the mages, and there's a mage there called Antonidas. The other guy played by Toby. Besides Duratan, which I don't even know how they even did the like, how is it that he sounds like Duratan? I'm a little confused. But anyways, so Antonidas is to take Khadgar to this thing called Alodi. Alodi? Alodi? So, come to find out, it's this floating, rotating brick of a thing, this little cube of a thing, that is to all of a sudden open up. And we have Antonidas, who is to say that it seems that has never happened before. And so Khadgar is to need to go into this. And so we have this cloaked woman that's inside that is to also called Elodie, is to tell Khadgar what is all happening. That she used a lot of her power to get him here, and a lot of her power to like tell him what's all going on about the Guardian, and that he is infected with the Fel, and that they should go on and like try to like take him down before like he becomes a threat to everyone. So, because we have the Guardian at some point who is to actually kill off Morelos by telling him that the Fel had become too great in him and that he couldn't control it, and so he just sucked the life out of his own man. And so we have Lothar, who is to explain to his king and is to explain to all these people about the Guardian, and he's also like having them again look at all the map and all the numbers that they have less of, and Lothar is just losing it. He at this point is just so upset with everything, and like anything that he is to say here is to just be dismissed, because the king is just thinking that Lothar is saying all this because he's grieving and they can't trust anything that he says. So Lothar is put into this this cell, And Garona is to see him in this cell and is to just be just kind of wanting to comfort Lothar as he's grieving. And there's several times where she hugs him and is to be close to him. And we're just expecting like these two are just going to be together, as Lothar is to mention about the whole like Colin, who was to lose his mother with childbirth. And so Colin had, after losing his child, never felt so much in pain and so much in like just sadness and so on and so forth. So we now go on and we have the king with a number of his people who are left that are going to try to take on these orcs. With whoever they have left, they're just going on and they're just trying to take down these orcs, because Gul'dan is going to send every single one of his orcs through. And so it's getting down to that point where like all whoever is left is going to have to go and fight these orcs. And I'm like, wait a minute, so we really just have it where I think like too much of this is going to be like, how is it that the humans are to at all have a chance? Unless we just get one person who has this like all great kind of power that it's just to wipe everybody out. And like if we have like Gandalf the White or something that just comes in and just wipes everybody out or something like that, it has to be like this really high, like somebody needs to go on and like realize that like, well, hey, like we need to go on and like everybody has to come together and like take all these orcs out, take this new threat. Cause like it just feels like the humans are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and we have like dwarves, we have elves, we have all these kind of other characters, and it doesn't feel like they're involved. And I'm like, wait a minute, like why don't we have like everybody and their brother like involved in this thing? Because like it just feels like the humans are just doing all the heavy lifting. Like did they just not want to like have to do like a lot of like CGI or makeup for elves at some point? So we have it where the king and Garana are going on with all their numbers, trying to stop the onslaught of the orcs. And so Khadgar is to rescue Lothar from prison and is to change this prison guard into a goat. And so they run off to try and stop the Guardian. And so they go to Karazhan and come to find out the Guardian is to be able to use his power to unleash the Golem. And so now Khadgar is having to deal with the Golem while Lothar is figuring out a way to just talk to the Guardian. And we have it where Khadgar is to come up with this plan to tell Lothar to just like, well, like just go on and just try to like talk to him to get him into that that magic pool. And so Lothar is like, okay, like I guess I can do that, because what else am I going to do? So Lothar is talking to the Guardian and saying like, well, hey, like Medivh, like I'm sure there's somewhere deep down inside you that still is to be like Medivh, so like come back to us, like try to like fight this. And so Luthar's talking this thing, getting it to exactly where he needs to be. And so Lothar is telling like Khadgar, it's like now like do it, like do whatever you're gonna do. As Lothar was to also go on and try to fight this golem, and he was to chop off the head of it. And now we just have a headless golem that's just kind of trying to like figure out where to go here. The golem is like saying all these kind of sayings and so on and so forth. And so we have Khadgar, who is to use his teleportation magic to then have the golem fall right onto the Guardian. And so now we have it where Khadgar is now in the Fell, and so he's using his power to try to fix the Guardian, and to also have Khadgar like get rid of this Fell. And so now we have it where like this pool is no longer pool, it's just empty, as this golem who is to now be on top of the Guardian is now just there. And so the Guardian is to mention how he was to be lonely, and that he was to try to use this one last bit of power to possibly help out the king. So we have I think we have Lothar and Khadgar, who then have to try and transition to make their way to, of course, where... Or no, I think Lothar has to transition with the Griffin to get to where the king is. And so he's racing to get to the king after they wipe out the Guardian. So the king is with Garana, and they're getting overwhelmed. And so the king is going on and saying that Garona was to say that if Garona would have killed the king's wife, that Garona would go on and be treated very well by the orcs. And so the king is to now tell Garona to now just kill him, so like she will be in better odds with her own people, so they won't kill her off also. And so the king is like telling her, do it, like you need, like I'm gonna die anyways, so you might as well be the one to take me out. As Blackhand here is just kind of making his way, it's like, I'm gonna come after you. So we have Garana, who stabs Lane in the neck, and he dies. And so now, like, they take both the king's body and they take Garana, and they're kind of hauling her to have Garana meet with Gul'dan and just be like, well, yeah, like you've earned a place with us. You are now an orc. And so Garana's like, okay, like great, like I had to kill a person that I really did like, and more than likely I'm not gonna win any points with the humans now, and so I'm right back where I was. So we have Lothar, who makes it with the Griffin back to the orcs in this battle, and the Griffin is trying to like fling all these orcs and take them all down and trying to nip at them. Lothar is going through and starting to try to take down some of these orcs, and he finds Blackhand, and he is to go on and kill him off because he killed his son. So that was like the one thing that he wanted to do. So the thing of it is that Lothar is to go on and try to take the king's body and leave with it, but one of the orcs grab him, and that's when now Lothar and Blackhand have this fight. Lothar is to win, and we have it where the orcs are to respect Lothar and have him walk away from this battle. And Gul'dan is like, well, no, like you need to kill him off. Like everybody, all the orcs, just go on and start killing him. And the orcs are like, no, like we have to respect this challenge, and he won, so we're not going to kill him. And so Gul'dan is just so tempted to just start killing multiple of his own people, because he's just so like, he's done with them. Like he's just like, you know what, I can just use you people just to suck you whole, and just like, I don't really need you. I'm so powerful. I don't really need you people. So Lothar is to go on and deliver his king's body to his people. And so they have this funeral for the king, and we of course have Lothar, who is to like temporarily like step in to take the king's sword, and Lane is to have a son where the king is to mention to his son, it's like, well, hey, like you're gonna be the new man of the house while I'm gone, and like he like trusts that this kid is going to like protect their family, and as Lane is like making his way out to battle. So really the whole end of this is like, well, hey, like I'm gonna have this sword up and we're gonna go into battle and we're gonna take back what was taken from us, so on and so forth. And so really that's like the tail end of all this is like an ending that doesn't seem like a legitimate ending. It's just like, well, hey, there's gonna be a sequel. And there never was, sadly enough. So with all of that, hopefully I got most of this stuff. There probably was little bits and chunks and pieces in there, which I didn't go on and say all of what happened, because there's just a lot of stuff in this movie, and I reiterated things, and I apologize. Uh, but there's also just like a lot of stuff that I just had to like just smash all in here, and so that's the way that this review was to go on and be. So whatever it is, like there wasn't the perfect order of everything, but when it comes down to it, also like that's the review. It's just like, man, if I were to probably have gone on and tried to review this, there would probably be like so many different things that I would go on and say within this review, because there's so much stuff within that allotted time within this movie. And really, like a lot of it would like it should have just been like some other way to just do wow. um and so like I would say it's like, well, yeah, this is an okay attempt, but like I feel that a Warcraft movie doesn't work. World of Warcraft movie just doesn't work. It just doesn't. So let's eventually hope somewhere down the pipeline there's an actual series, or eventually World of Warcraft uh, does something. So with that said, I think I'm just gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.